Mhm.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We are live with Bootcamp 2020, and as we have discussed in our last class, we are moving towards the to become a big boys in AWS. I like the term, so I keep repeating it. So,
Actually, I mentioned big boss because we were coming from Netlify.
yes, yes,
For the students, we had first done search, then Netlify. So then we have
yes,
reached the AWS, which has about 170 services. Of course,
yes.
the area which we are covering is serverless, which is much smaller cross section, about 20 odd services.
Mm.
So therefore, it's not going to be tough. And CDK had made it comparatively easy. So therefore,
Much easier,
much
and
easier.
much easier because they have what they did is first they centralized everything to
Hmm.
at a single place in form of cloud formation and then CDK, and
Hmm.
then they gave us a minimalistic constructs so that we can call them and it will do a job for a simple configuration.
Yes, and cloud formation is basically the WebAssembly.
Yes.
Now, but we are going to use CDK, which we are going to use TypeScript. So therefore, Zeeshan, let's get started. Let's do
Okay.
a hello world.
Okay. So let me share my screen first. Okay. So we'll target our this repository for our steps and how we'll be moving forward. So we explored few articles in our previous class. Today we are going to
Zeeshan, could you please increase the resolution a little bit?
yes. Can you see it?
Mhm. A little bit more if possible.
Yes.
Mhm.
So that's the modern cloud, which URL we have showed in our previous class, full stack serverless SDK, and we have created uh, steps, step 0 to there are many steps and there are more coming, I guess.
Mhm.
So these were the links we have explored in previous classes, few of them, but there are more, so you can go and learn from them. What we are going to do today is we are going to follow what we need to do a hello world with CDK. So very first example of CDK, how we are going to use it. So for that, follow this repository in a sequence. So step 00 hello CDK. It already has a code and it has given you the what is the CDK, the links, steps how you are going to set up your CDK for the very first time on your machine, and then you need to run the code and a command. So we'll follow step by step these follow these steps so that we can understand how we'll be building the application using the CDK or setting up infrastructure using CDK. So for first of all, what you need to understand is you need obviously you need to create an account on AWS, and then you need to create a user. Generally, the user you create with, let me show you first AWS and my account. So whenever you create your account, that's the call your root user. You can use this user as your what you say user to access your code and everything, but the recommended way is to create an IMA user first, give that user administrative access or access to particular resources, and then move towards the using your application. So our first step will be we'll create IMA user, then I'll show you how we are going to use the CLI and link and the, first of all create an account on AWS, then go to the main screen of your AWS management console has everything. This list all the services, and if you want to search a specific service, you can type IAM user. Once you use some service, it's display in recently used services, so you can usually access that particular service. So let me click on IMA user. By the way, the way you can create IMA user, it's already explained over here as well. There's a link, create IMA user. So you can create IMA user and you need to assign a policy to it. Okay, so once for the very first time, there will be single user, there will be no groups, there will be no roles, as I'm continuously using it to run my examples and samples. So that's why there are multiple users. Then you will go to users and you will click add user. It will ask to name user. So let's say Bootcamp-CDK, that's my name of a user. And do you want to give this user only code access so that that user can only access AWS, your AWS account using code API, or you want to give that user a UI access? So that means if I create an account and I have a team of 2 or 3 developers, so I can create different users and I can give them an access so they can use my AWS account. So if you want your teammate to view your AWS console as a UI in a browser, then you can click AWS Management Console access. Otherwise, as we need to use the CDK only, so we can click on the only programmatic access. You can give them both, but at this moment I'm just using the programmatic access. So it will generate access ID and secret access key that will require in a moment later when we'll be configuring our users. So once you click on it, then click on next, permission. So generally it's a complex area. You can go and find lot many things. Let's say when you are on permission area, there is a button called create group. In that group, now you can see there are, I guess, maybe 100 or 200, or I don't know, somewhat accessibilities. So that means there are separate access for everything. Let's say S3, there is access for S3. You want to give full access. There is access to Amazon Connect EC2 container services. There is access to API gateway. So there are a lot of accessibilities. You can pinpoint and give specific accessibility to particular user. Or at this moment, we need to test and we need to work on multiple services. So what we can do is we can go and directly give administrative access. Administrative access is a full access of all the services. And I need to give it a name. So let's say I'll call it Bootcamp Policy Group, whatever name you want to give it. Then click on the create group button. Like you see, these are my old access group. This is the access group. That means in future, if you create a new user and you want to give them a similar accessibility as you have given to some previous created users, so you can use this group as well. So once click on the next on tags, it's an optional, so I'm skipping it. We don't need it at this moment. Now it's a review screen. Name will be Bootcamp CDK. Access type is a programming access. Permission boundary is not set. That means unlimited boundary. You can access anything. And the policy which have the accessibility information, so that in that group you can add multiple policies. Create user. This will create a user and it will give you the access ID and secret. So what I'll do is let me copy this. That's my access ID and that's my secret key. I'll copy them both. We'll need it in a while. Okay. So we are done. Yes.
In a while, please delete it.
yes, I'll delete it. Okay. So once you are done with it, it's what you say. You have the user. Now let's go back to our list. What we need to do. So we are done with installing the creating the account, and then accessing the. We have created the IMA user and we have accessed the credentials. So these credentials are, that's the credential, access ID and secret key. Now we need to install few things, as we'll be using some language. So if
Zeeshan,
you are,
I'm getting
yes,
a bit nervous. I think please go ahead and delete the account right now
okay, just some,
because we have shown it to everyone.
okay, just let me just pick it and delete the user.
Because bills can mount up very quickly in AWS.
Yes,
Pe-
that's true. That's true.
People can use it to mine Bitcoin. So therefore,
Yeah, so you guys need to understand the reason Sajjad is getting jumpy is because I have shown you my access ID and my secret key. Now what you can do is you can create a service, and you can provide this access ID and key, and then you can access any service from the AWS, that it will be charged to my account and not yours. So that's why so I have deleted it. So there are other two users. You guys don't know the keys about it.
Mhm.
Okay. Then what we need to do is we need to install if you want to use with the TypeScript, then you need to install TypeScript. You need to if you are working with the Python, then there should be a Python in your system. If you are working with JavaScript, then it's always there. So you need to install TypeScript and AWS CLI. It's not an AWS CDK. CDK is different. And that's also we need to install. But we need to install AWS CLI, which uh, is what you say. It's a kind of a complete package of a complete AWS services. CDK is specific to creating a infrastructure as a code, but AWS CLI is available for everything. So you need to install the CLI. So let's go to this. If you are using Linux, Dockers, if you are on Windows, as I'm on Windows, so what you can do is there are multiple requirements. What you need to do is you need to click on this link. It will download an MSI file, executable file. You will double click it and it will install on your system. Just that. There is nothing else to do with it, because that's a simple way to install this CLI. It will create an AWS configuration on your system, and you can access the AWS things because of this
Zeeshan,
AWS. Yes.
the good thing is that even you don't even know React, you can follow along with AWS thing.
Yeah, we
Even
are basically definitely.
if you start today also, you can follow AWS.
Yeah, because React is a client side of application development. We are talking about the server side, how we'll be using the AWS for the server management and infrastructure. So that's why you can follow
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
Okay, so once you're done with the CLI, you can also install serverless application. I'm not going to show it at this moment. I'm just showing you the list. If you do not install it at this moment, your Hello World and a few more steps will work. There is no problem, but that will be needed in future as we'll be working on serverless application model. So you have this, uh, and it has mentioned all the create an account administrative. I have already shown you. You need to install a Docker so that you can test serverless function on the client side. Otherwise, you will not be able to test serverless on not client side on your local machine. And then it's a 64-bit what you say a version of your SMCLI. You can download and install it. That's also a terminal what you say. Okay, then a CDK, you need to install the CDK. Again, it's simple. Just go I guess install AWS CDK. Just a simple command, because you have already installed, you must have a Node.js installed on your system, because the npm requires an npm to install. So why it's not showing the command to install CDK?
I think you go to get started with AWS CDK on the top.
Okay. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to call AWS Configure, and then you need to call npm install AWS CDK. So for that, it's getting started in AWS Cloud Development Kit. So what you need to do, once you install the AWS CLI, then you can call AWS Configure on your terminal. So let's say I'm opening a terminal and I'll call AWS Configure. It will ask access key. So the access key we have created, you will paste over here. Once you hit the enter, it will ask the secret key. So the secret key we have created, you can enter that secret key, and and then it will ask the region. So it will ask three things: access key, secret, and then region. So for the region, you can set US West 2, US East 1. So there is a different regions for the AWS services. So you can set that region in the terminal. Once you install CLI, then you need to call AWS Configure. After that, you will call npm install globally AWS CDK. So then you will have AWS CDK services in your system, and then you can call AWS deploy and all these commands. Then as we are using with the TypeScript, so you need to call npm install -g TypeScript. So TypeScript should be in your system. I'll explain a construct in a while. So once you are done with this, what you can do is you can follow this example, which is also available here as well. So now what we need to do is we need to create a application directory, and then we need to execute few commands. So for that, what I'll do is, there are too many. I'll create a folder over here, sample CDK 1. And inside that, I'll open a terminal. And here what I'll do is I need to execute a command cdk init app -- language. You need to specify which language you need to work with. This will create a basic structure of a CDK application, which will help you to construct your infrastructure as a code. So I'll copy this and paste it over here. CDK, that means you should have already CDK installed in it. It's an initialization. You are calling an app, so whichever folder you are in, it will refer this as a application directory and create everything based on sample CDK1 language, and then you hit the enter. It will start setting up the initial structure and install a few things.
While you're installing, some people don't understand that what you do is first get an account in AWS, and then you have to apply for the free tier.
Yes.
And once you apply for the free tier, and they will validate your phone number, and they will validate other things. Once that is done, then they will not charge you for the basic services.
Yes. So it's 12-month free service for few. So the things we'll be using are initially free, so we can use it for a 12-month. After that, they'll charge it, but definitely will be up and running in few months. So we'll be happy to pay them if we are earning something. Okay, so that's done. Now you can see here we have directory. Let's open in a Visual Studio Code. And we have few folders and files, so we need to explore them. First of all, we have a readme file, package.json file. Package.json file has a script built which will run TypeScript. Watch it's keep running. So if there isn't any change in TypeScript, it will convert. And CDK. And there are few dependencies, which is CDK as well as CDK core. Then you have an important folder named bin. It has a type-C file and it says import something, a source map register, and then import CDK, and then it's importing something from my library. I'll show you in a moment. It creates CDK app, and then it's creating an object which is available in my library. So I'll show you. You pass it app and name. Then so every CDK app needs a starting point, and that starting point is an app. So it's what you call a primary unit from where the application will starts, and it start taking information to set up a stack.
Just before we move forward, so therefore, yes, whenever we are going to create a stack, it is going to operate in a particular region. Zeeshan, what do you mean by region?
Basically, as the big data centers like AWS, Google, they have a data center, big centers where there are hundreds and thousands of, or maybe more than 100,000 of machines in each center. So they have created these data centers in different part of the world. What they mean is each data center or they given a region to each data center or each location. So maybe, so they call it in AWS case, they call it US East 1. So that means there are some data center in US East, which they call it name. There is an US East 2, there is US West 1, US West 2. So there are multiple regions. In that particular region, they have maybe 1, 2, or 3 data centers. So when you say US East 1, that means you're talking about a data center which is in a particular region. And when you set up your application on AWS, let's say US East 1, so it will your application will set up on that particular data center. It will not be available on different data centers. That does not mean that the person from the US West cannot access it. Person can access it, but that will be distance from in term of the time measures of calling an application. That's a different thing. It will be your application will exist in a particular data center which call US East 1. It's a region, and there can be multiple data centers in that particular region. So that's what region means.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so at this moment we have not done anything related to region in this code, but as I showed you here, when you call AWS Configure, it will have access ID, secret key, and region. So that will be your default regions. You are setting up your default region. You can set up a region afterwards, but we'll go over there in later classes. For now, you would understand that once you set your region over here in this terminal, let's say my region is US West 2. So it will always be US West 2. So whenever you try to install something, it will or set up something infrastructure on AWS servers, so it will be the data center which is in US West 2. Okay, now the basic structure, another file that has been created inside the lib, which is called stack. It's you name it anything simple, CDK stack 1, anything, extends cdk.stack. So what you need to understand is, let me show. This example. So everything, what you need to understand is your application contains, like we say, we are a full stack developer, like we say, we are a MERN stack developer, we are mean stack developer. That means we are talking about a stack which contains, in case of MERN stack, I'm saying that I can work with React, MongoDB, Node.js as an application stack. Exactly like that, we are creating an infrastructure stack that these particular services will be available inside my stack. So whenever I try to set up my infrastructure, so that infrastructure will have these stacks. So it can have AWS, sorry, it can have a S3, it can have Lambda, it can have EC2 instance, it can have API gateway. So these 4 or 5 services together make up my stack. So that's what you call stack. So every time, whatever you do, you need to use access service. Let's say I want to access S3 service, I want to access API gateway. So I will be adding that code over here, and these all code accessibility, all these services together can make up a stack. So that is my infrastructure stack. And there can be multiple stacks, and then in particular stack you have a different constructs. So each AWS Lambda, like you can see here, AWS3, they together become call a stack, and they itself call as construct, and then they create a cloud formation and they deploy it on the formation. So for us, we need to use this stack, and this stack is passed, you can see simple CDK stack is passed here. New simple CDK stack, we pass the app. You can also create class over here, but forget about it at this moment. That's the simple way to use it. So pass app over here, and then simple CDK stack you name. That's a name you always, in case of whenever we'll be creating any construct or something, we need to pass a name that is called logical ID. They created a logical ID. We'll see that later. So new sample stack, we created object of it, and then we pass this app inside it. So once we deploy our construct, we'll deploy on the AWS. So what will happen is this code will execute, and it will find app initially, then it will find a stack. In from that stack, whatever available here, it's a constructor. So when you call a new, so that constructor starts executing, and whatever you will do here will, let's say you ask for the S3 service. So S3 service will initiate, it will then the cloud formation template will be generated, and then it will go to the AWS, and it will generate your infrastructure, set up your infrastructure. So that's the class. We'll keep using that particular class, and we'll be adding all our constructs here. They also created a sample test functionality. So if you want to test, you can do testing in this particular way. So now you can imagine, the testing is meant for a code. So you can test your server code, you can test your client side code. Now you can test your infrastructure setup code. So you have set up the infrastructure in a particular way or not. So you can test that as well. So CDK JSON is a configuration about in explaining what it is. So that's the basic structure of your application. Whenever you will create your structure, you will have these things with you. Okay, so now let's move next. What we need to do is what we need to do is we need to access some service from our AWS. So for initially, what we want to do is we'll try to create S3 bucket. So S3 is in a simple storage service where you can upload your static files, your images, or anything. So we'll be creating a S3 bucket. So for that, now what you need to understand, one more thing is
basically bucket you can think of it as a directory. Am I right?
As a directory, yes. It's a directory on AWS within a boundary of S3. So whatever you want to, whatever static files or folders or you want to place on AWS, so you can use S3. So for this, what you say, package, I want to show you the API references so that you can understand. Yes, the API reference. No, this should be, yes. So API reference, and it has a list of services. So it will show you how you can access a particular service. What we need S3 service. So I'll go down and S3. Okay, so S3, I'll click on it. Overview. It will show me why it's taking time. Okay, it will show me how you can access S3. So as we are using TypeScript, so it's saying to install, you need to call AWS CDK AWS S3, and then you can create a bucket like this, or it's a L2 construct. I'll explain L1, L2, L3 in a moment. So it's a L2 construct, and then you can call it like this. You can pass this, then a name, and then you provide the configuration. So all of your construct, whatever service you are using, so that's the beauty of creating a centralized or a particular repository in a pattern, that any service you are going to use will require three arguments: a scope, a name or a ID, and a properties. So we will be providing scope. Definitely we are in this code. So for that we will need this. So for saying that we need to be in this particular stack, then we'll give a name, and then we can provide a properties. Okay, so now as it's mentioning that you need to install AWS SDK S3, I'll go to the terminal and install it. These are the steps you're going to learn for the very first time, and then it will be your sixth sense, so you will be always doing it. Okay, so it's install AWS SDK, and it's available to me here, as you can see. AWS S3 SDK. So all these services, what AWS did is they given us a core which will be installed, because there are 170 services, somewhat 170 or something services. So for that, what they did is they created a separate module. So whichever service you want to use it, you just install that service, import that service, and then use it.
Zeeshan,
Okay.
in version 2.0, which is going to come up soon, they are going to consolidate everything in a single NPM CDK.
Yeah, because everything has a good and bad pros and cons. So at this moment, the pro is that you will have only particular service in your directory or in your node modules. The con is you need to every time install for a new service. In 2.0, definitely you will have every service in a particular single install, but then your node module will be heavier than expected. So everything has a pros and cons, it's a side. Okay, so once we are done with it, now we need to use the construct. So it says use a construct. So I'll go over here. It says call this service, or you can go for your first example. It also show you that what you need to do. So what you can do is you can call S3 bucket. Now you also need to understand one more thing: the import. At this moment, whenever you want to use a particular service, there are what you can do is you can call a static as S3. So all the construct inside S3 will be available as S3 dot, or you can import it individually. So let's say if I want to use import it individually, it will be like this: import static bucket, like this. Now you need to always find out if there is a particular thing available or not. So the better way is like CDK is being as S3. Now what you can do is you can call new S3 dot. So everything available in this S3 module will be available like this. So while exploring its documentation, it reminds me the day of Java. Everything was quite documented and the pattern was there and everything. So it reminds me the day of Java, the documentation days.
Mm-hmm.
Bucket, and then you can pass three properties inside the bucket. Scope, which is this, because this particular object is our scope. The ID, the ID will be, let's say, my bootcamp bucket. And then I'll pass an object. So there are multiple configuration. Control space will give you all the properties which you can configure in this object. So there are multiple properties. At this moment, we want only one, which is version 2. So that means every object you enter in your S3 bucket will have a version. So if you will upload a same object with the same name, so S3 will keep the versioning so that you can find out if it's what was the previous version and what was the new. So that's the simple S3 bucket, its version. And now what you can do is we can call CDK synth. Either you call it, or if you do not call, that's not a problem, but it will show you the template which will be generated by the uh, CDK. So once you are done with it, let's call it CDK it's basically short for synthesize. So it has given us a template, a cloud formation template, which we were talking about in our previous class. So it's a YML file. For the format is YML. So it says resources, bootcamp bucket, S3 bucket. It has a versioning enabled, update, replace policy. So the
If we were not using CDK, we would have to write all this.
yeah, that's what I was coming up. That these properties, I just configured the version 2 and this object. What they did is what YAML required, what cloud formation previously required you to write is the type, then property, then update, replace. So many properties they made as a default one. So you do not have to worry about update, replace policy, retain metadata, and the region and everything. So it's at this moment it's a one service S3. In future we'll be integrating the AWS API and many other things. So this file will become bigger and bigger with the time. Okay, now what we can do is, as we are using the TypeScript, so I can run npm run build, so it generates the JavaScript files. Okay, so before running a deployment, I'll let me show you uh, AWS service, and then cloud formation and S3. Let me show you in what it's right now and then what it will be. So there are a few stacks already there. I was testing it. So there are 3 stacks previously. the cloud formation as a stack, stack set, and many other things. So at this moment, there are 3 stacks. There will be a 4th one, and we'll see that one inside that, and that will be our stack which will be deploying. And there is a S3 bucket. There is already a bucket, and there will be another bucket once we deploy our application. Okay. So Cdk Deploy. It's running a cloud formation, so it's generating a file, and then it will create a formation on the AWS server, set up everything, and your infrastructure will be ready on just one click. Okay, so it's done with the generation. Let's go to the AWS, and yes, now you can see sample CDK 1 stack creation in process. So it will update in a moment. Let me refresh it. So creation is done. I'll click on it. It will show me the complete detail related to the stack, what the inputs are for, what's the output for this particular stack which we have deployed. So there are 170 services. The cloud formation will centralize everything, whatever you created for a particular application. So now you can see events over here. So it will show you the process step by step what happened when you deployed your stack. So it says start reviewing, then start creating the stack on the AWS, then it created the bucket, it set up the metadata, then it creates the bucket, what you say, it's a retention policy, updated the some policies, then metadata, and then its creation is complete. That's the 1 2 3 4 5. It's a 7 or 8 steps. If I'll add 2 3 services more, there will be a big list. You can see here. You can see. So it will give you every step. It will show you every step what happened. So you can identify resources. It will show you whatever resources you have created. So they created the bucket, S3 bucket, and then created the metadata for your bucket output. At this moment, there is no output because we have not output anything. Parameters, we have not passed. Template, the complete template which we saw here. This complete template will be available here. So you can see this template here, and you can view this in a designer, which is a cloud formation designer. So we are not going over there. And change set. Change set tells you what change happened once between the deployment. So you, as I have deployed infrastructure once, then I thought there might need to be update. So I changed something in S3 bucket, and then I deployed again. So it will show me whatever changes whatever changes you have done during different deployment. So you can track whatever infrastructure changes are. And that's the cloud formation which show everything over here. We have used one service, S3. So now let's go to S3 service, refresh it. Okay, so now you have 2 bucket. This was the old previous, it was created previously. This is the one we have created, the sample SDK. So they have given it a name. Click on it. That's your bucket. At this moment, there are not too much of a permission and everything. It's in public initially. So you can do other configurations within the code. You do not have to do anything here. You can do everything from here. Access control, bucket name, anything, cross origin access, and everything you need to do, you can do from here, from the code. You do not have to go in S3 service from here. So that's the basic we have created. If I'll do a small change and then I'll show you. But one more thing I need to show you, that for the S3 is always global. It's not specific to any particular region. But in the case of cloud formation, if I'll change my region from here, you can see there are multiple regions, and my deployment was for US West 2. So if I'll go to the US East 2, it says there is no stack, there is no formation, because whatever stack I have created is for US West 2 region. So my,
Zeeshan, let's
yes,
look at the regions. In Asia, what other regions are there?
in Asia we have a Hong Kong app East 1, app South 1, Mumbai, Seoul, app North East 2, Singapore, the Southeast 1. So we have 4 or 5 these
Mhm.
Asia Pacific regions. But sometimes if you are, that's the, I can't see or the
There is
complete
a
list here.
there is a near us, Middle East, Bahrain. Go down.
Yes, Bahrain.
Mhm.
But you never know. If you are selecting a particular region, you need to see the cost pricing of that particular region as well.
Mhm.
So whenever, let's say, you try to deploy anything, uh, let's say S3 pricing, just wanted to show that pricing differs based on region. So selecting the Bahrain will definitely not assure that it will be a cost less to you. So let's say if we are US East Ohio,
Mhm.
so that means your cost is 0.23. If we are going to select, let's say we have a Bahrain, Middle East Bahrain, it will cost you 2 cents more, 0.02 cents more. So it's depend. The less costly, I remember, maybe it's in Ireland or something. When you so every time you go for a particular service, you need to see which region it has a less or more price. So then you can select the region for a particular service. But definitely you also, that cost is only if you're, let's say if I'm creating an application which is only for the Pakistani users or Asian users. In that case, I need my data center to be near to the Asia, so it will respond to my customers much faster. It's a bit faster than if you'll be in US West 2. So the cost might paid off in terms of speed. Okay, so that's the initial what we have done with this example. Then you can deploy, and I showed you the cloud formation and the uh, S3. This I've shown you how S3 will be available to us. Okay, so now one thing I need to show, the last one is, should we discuss this at this moment, sir? L1, L2, L3 construct.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. So um, okay, so what you need to understand is there are few important concepts. The app we have just saw, the stack, which will combine multiple services, and each service, each service, the S3, EC2, or the API gateway, anything, they are called constructs. So you call it, you have this detail here as well, construct apps stacks. So each service is called construct, And when you talk about the construct, it is a particular service, let's say EC2, EC3, oh, sorry, EC2 and S3. I just got mixed up with you. So these are the services. So let's say they are talking about S3 bucket, so it's in a construct. But what you need to understand is there are three type of constructs: L1, L2, L3. What you need to understand is when you are talking about S3 bucket, S3 bucket is a direct service of an AWS. So whenever we want to create S3 bucket, there is exact one-to-one mapping of a service availability in cloud formation. When I'm talking about the cloud formation, that means it's an AWS service. So L1 is a direct mapping of a particular service S3, EC2, virtual private network, API gateway. That's a direct one-to-one mapping. So whatever service we have that in S3. And whenever you want to access a service which is S3 service or any service which exactly map to cloud formation, you can call them with the name CFN, not bucket. As we have done here, we have done S3 bucket, but what we can do is new CFN. We can call CFN bucket as well. So for CFN bucket, it's exactly one-to-one mapping. What the difference is, what CDK team did, the cloud formation and the services are there and was there from the previous cloud formation. But CDK team did what CDK team did is CDK team created stacks themselves, additional wrapper to a particular service. So when you are talking about S3 bucket like this, you are talking about L2 construct which CDK team has created. So there is a CNF bucket and there is a wrapper on it called bucket. So what they did is they combined few services, they provide some default values and everything. So like you see, we do not have to provide much of a detail, and we just did these properties a version and we are done. Because what CDK team did is they created a wrapper on CNF bucket and they provided some default values into it. And then now you have a bucket. It is called L2, a construct which CDK team has created on the cloud formation. So one is L1, which is a direct mapping of cloud formation service. L2, which is a wrapper on L1 services. And then there is an L3 services, which is a pattern. So if you want to create let's say a serverless application, so whatever it is required, so they have created a pattern for that separately. And when you do that construct, it will have a multiple services inside it. So you will have multiple services already in a particular stack or construct. So that's the difference between L1, L2, and L3. Okay, so should we move to the second step, or?
I think that's enough. Just revise it, and we'll because this is the first day of learning CDK, and
Yes.
people, it's easy for us, but the students find it sometimes difficult.
Okay. So you must follow the repository. This repository, keep in your watch list, or keep it with the in your watch list, so that you can always see the changes over here. So that's the very first step inside our repository. All the details are provided here. What you need to do is, as the very first step, you need to create an account on AWS. Then you need to create an user, which I had showed you, that you need to create an IMA user, which you can go from this link, or you can directly go to the MS on your AWS account. Let's say I'm on AWS. Everything is a service in AWS. So IMA user is also a service. and then you can click over here. It will show redirect you to the screen, and then you can create user. Once you are done with the creating a user, you need to copy the access id and key, and then you need to install the AWS CLI. Once you install it, it's in the MSI file, download and install it. Then you call AWS Configure. So you need to create a default profile. So whenever you want to deploy something, so I'll be testing application quite frequently. I do not have to provide access key all the time. So call AWS Configure. It will ask access key, then secret key, and then it will ask the region, which region you want to use. So then you can set up your region. Once it is done, you need to install TypeScript if you are setting up with the TypeScript. Then install CDK. To install CDK, just call it npm install -g AWS CDK. It will install it. You can also, I have not discussed the toolkit, we'll talk about it. Then you can configure it, install its extension. So go to this here and you can call it what you say CDK. It's already installed at this moment, so it's not appearing over here, I guess. So it will be like this. So I have this cloud formation and everything available to me. So it will show you the few details. So you can see there are 4 formation created. You can see and configure and review it inside your Explorer. Then you can install CDK. We have seen. What you need to do is, for the very first application, create a folder. Inside that particular folder, call a command cdk init app language TypeScript. Then it will show you basic structure, which we have seen in our code studio. Then you need to use a particular service. So each particular service, go to the API reference file, whatever service you want to use it has a detail, install it, and then the way they provide you the examples, create that particular service, and then you can call the CDK sync. It will show you the template. Then call the CDK deploy. So it will deploy, create a formation on your infrastructure. One last thing, once you are done, just call CDK destroy. It's whenever you are in learning or training. Do not do with your production. Do not do with the production. Destroy, CDK destroy. So what it will do is it will delete complete formation and whatever services you have created. Now you can see you have created too many services for a particular application. When you want to clean this up, you need to go every service and try to delete one by one. You just call CDK destroy. It will delete a complete formation, everything. Are you sure you want to delete? Yes. Don't worry about this. Make sure it's just terminal issue. So it's calling the destroy, and the stack is destroyed. So if the stack is destroyed, then there will be no that particular cloud formation, and there will be no bucket for S3. So you can see there is no such thing. So it will saves you some time. It will not a problem in this case, but when you create a EC2 instance, when you create any service which is charged based on hours of creation, then you need to stay particular on destroying services. So this is it.
Yes. Therefore, the thing was that somebody was asking the question that are we going to use root user to log into the AWS for the first time, or of course we are going to use the root user to log in the first time. Then we create. Otherwise, how are you going to create it? And then we create the IAM user, and then we use it.
Yes. Yeah, that's important.
And don't use the root user again. Most probably, nobody.
Yes.
Nothing is stopping you. But the point is, we use the IAM user from then on. Just a general practice. But if you are even using the root user, it will work.
Yeah, basically the recommendation is because the root user is the default administrative access. When you create IAM user, what you can do is you can assign some specific accessibility to that particular IAM user. So of your developer or anyone has access to it, so that particular application will have that only access to particular service. They will not have a complete access to your AWS. I'm learning at this moment and I'm using it myself. That's why I showed you the IAM user with the full access. Otherwise, you will give a particular access to particular services while creating it.
So therefore, the whole point is that if you lose control of root user, you will have to delete your account. And either
Yes.
if somebody has the access, he will not even allow you to delete that account.
Yes. Yeah.
And your credit card numbers are there. Therefore, if you are using IAM user, the moment you realize that something is wrong, you just delete it.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Anything else, Zeeshan?
No, I guess that's good enough. Just keep following the links and everything, every detail is available here. So follow those articles and links, and you will find it easy to.
Okay, so you just in the bottom portion, just type the URL of the CDK, just copy and paste so that everybody can see that with HTTP and everything. GitHub.
This URL,
Yes,
our repository URL.
yes. Just some people have difficulty.
So it's https github.com /panacloud modern app full stack serverless, and I'll paste it inside the comment as well, so they will have access. You can see over here, and then I'll copy and I'll paste. Okay, so we have I pasted inside the comment section.
So we are going to really enjoy it moving forward, and in the next classes we are going. We just covered step 0.
Yes.
Slowly and gradually we are going to build our skills. Everybody is welcome to join, and see you guys in the next class. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye everyone.